Destiny. Walls of Destiny. Part 1. Chapter 10. Arrivals and Departures. After days of travel on horseback, Napari, cold, tired, and sore, had arrived at the walled city. Her small stature made it easy for her to slip past the guards. Yushime had just arrived home when he saw a stout hooded figure sitting upon his steps. As he moved closer, there became no doubt who she was. "Quickly, come inside," he said as he took her by the elbow and jerked the door open, ushering her in. "How did you get here unseen?" "The guards are watching for you," he said as they sat at his kitchen table. "Where are the others? Why have you come back this soon?" he frantically asked, his voice tinged with bewilderment. "They left me behind. They saw my presence as a detriment to the mission. I brought them no closer to understanding Raybor's intent. We had gone to the Red Wizard, and he traveled with us, bound for the home of his former apprentice, but I did not make it that far. Some great power obscured our sight, exactly what, I do not know. But this is not why I have come back. I sense things have not been the same here since we have been gone." Yushime got up and fetched her a warm cup of tea while she spoke. "No, lots have happened. Anyone associated with Milo isn't safe. Even I was questioned for many hours," he said solemnly. "As I suspected. Shem, I feel that even if they succeed, war is still coming. If you stay here, in the city, war will come. I have seen it. You must leave the city," she said as she sipped the refreshing tea. Yushime sat and placed one of his hands over hers. "I cannot leave my people. How could my staying here cause war?" Her eyes connected with his. "You must trust me. If you stay here, there will be an uprising, and many will be slaughtered, including you. You must not stay. Please, come with me to River's Edge. We will be safe there. We can be as we once were. We won't have to hide it." "I can't just up and leave. I would need to make some preparations. I have sacramental mead fermenting. I must close up the house and," began Shem before being interrupted. "So, you will go with me then," said Napari. "It will take me a few days to take care of things here," he replied. "I don't want to wait that long," the seer said. "The longer I stay in the city, the more dangerous it is for me. You know this." "You are right. But you must at least wait until tomorrow. You have been out there for days. After you have rested, go to River's Edge and I will find you there in my own time," said the village father. They spent a final night together before her departure, and with the rest she needed, Yushime furnished her with food and supplies and accompanied her to her horse by way of a secret tunnel that he was privy to, and they said their goodbyes. At the home of Rowler, everyone awoke to the sound of Rowler's great birds harmoniously crowing, chirping, and calling. They each had a refreshing night's sleep, but the serious mood of the day instantly returned to their minds. As usual, Losgrel was the first awake. Anticipating the arrival of the men summoned by Rowler, he began preparing the animals and the supplies they would need. Milo and Longfellow filled water containers from the icy mountain spring in the backyard and placed them near the horses. Not long after, Rowler called them inside to help prepare breakfast. On the table were 2 skull-sized eggs which Rowler began to prepare. Milo and Longfellow chopped up some dried onions and peppers from Rowler's fall harvest. As Rowler prepared the omelets, Milo thought about what he may have to face in the near future, Napari's words still ringing in his head. "You won't be able to face your fears," he remembered her telling him. He wanted to prove her wrong, once and for all, yet at the same time he feared he may be facing the possibility of his own demise. He was afraid, yet he tried not to let it show. After all, she was the all-seeing, all-knowing seer. According to her, his fate was set. Or did he have some say in the matter? She also hinted that fact on occasion. Which was it? A bit of both? Milo prepared his plate and sat at the table while Longfellow brought a plate outside for Losgrel. Rowler sat next to Milo at the table, recognizing Milo's inner conflict. "I know things weigh heavy on you now. You carry weight of many mountain with you, but not everything is as seen. In my language we have saying. I try to translate," explained the wise wizard as he paused and tried to think of the words in the common tongue. "The walls of destiny seem like made of stone, but in truth are only thin as paper. It rhyme in my language, but you understanding?" It was as if Rowler read his mind and knew just what to say. "Yes, I understand," he said. "Thank you, Rowler," he said as he took a bite of his breakfast. "There's something else that I can't seem to get off my mind," said Milo in between bites. Longfellow had returned and sat with the two of them with his breakfast plate. "Pardon me," he said. "I didn't mean to intrude. Please continue." Milo looked at Longfellow and nodded. "Yes, Milo, please continue," said Rowler. "The vision I had the other day, I saw many possible paths, many doors. I only opened one of the doors, but it felt overwhelmingly that the other doors contained real paths, just as real as the door I opened." "How can that be? Was it just an illusion?" he asked. Longfellow listened intently. "Not illusion," began Rowler. "Have you ever heard of—" "I can't think of word." "Sakula," he asked. "What?" "No, I have never heard of it," Milo replied. "Is a book that have many endings. You get choice in book, move ahead to certain page. Each choice have different ending," he explained. "Life same way. Sakula mean life book. Story depend on your choice. Life depend on your choice. In book, you not read some of the page but page still exist, yes? In life, choice not taken still exist. Not part of your story but could have been." Just then, Burdock stomped down the stairs yawning. Preposterous, bellowed Burdock. The whole idea violates the law of Hafdar's filter, he said as he made himself a plate of food, mumbling to himself. What is Hafdar's filter? Whispered Milo. Longfellow moved closer to Milo and softly explained. Hafdar was a master of natural science, an alchemist, who postulated that the simpler ideas were more likely to be close to the truth than a complex idea which would remain in the filter. He is saying the idea that many paths simultaneously exist is too complex to be true. Milo nodded. Don't listen to the grumpy one, joked Rowler. So, the seer, she was wrong then. I am not bound to what she saw for me, mused Milo. The one who traveled with you? Asked Rowler. Milo nodded. Not fully wrong. The ones like her see all paths. To them, all real, said Rowler. The words of the wise wizard gave Milo a temporary sense of comfort as they awaited the arrival of the soldiers. After the hearty breakfast and ensuring the horses and Jack were ready to go, the only thing left to do was wait. Burdock and Losgrel sat at a small wooden table near the animals, making small talk. Who are these men that Rowler sent for? Asked Losgrel. Can they be trusted? They are men of the cliffs, said Burdock as he lit his pipe. Do they come riding billy goats, then? Asked Losgrel sarcastically. Their villages lie up in the mountains to the northwest. They are fine horsemen and warriors, I assure you. Many years ago, Rowler and I purged their lands of the power-hungry witch, Tristia the Silver. Well, Rowler should get most of the credit, but I did help. Anyway, the Jarl promised a favor to aid Rowler in the event that he should ever require it, explained the Red Wizard. This Jarl, he's a man of his word? Asked the knight. I would bank on it, truly, said Burdock as the rumble of hoofsteps began to echo through the valley. Rowler heard the commotion and came outside to greet the horsemen as they thundered closer. A man, slightly taller than Losgrel, stepped down from his horse, his dark-weathered features similar to Rowler's. His strange, feathered cap and his many tattoos set him apart from the other horsemen. Rowler approached him and they began speaking in a foreign language. Losgrel arose and assessed the men before approaching Milo. How many of Raybor's men did you see in your vision, Milo? He asked. There were about 30, answered Milo. We totaled 22. Against 30. We are outnumbered, exclaimed Losgrel, waving his hands at Burdock. But we have Jack, said Milo confidently. And we have a wizard, added Longfellow. Yes, but no doubt they will have one too, said Burdock. After their brief conversation, Rowler turned to the others. This is Antonine. He is chief of this group. Antonine bowed and introduced each member of the group, but the names were very difficult to pronounce, let alone remember. In turn, the 4 of them each introduced themselves. The soldiers dismounted, stretched and sat around the smoldering campfire and ate. Losgrel grew impatient. He expected to be heading out as soon as they arrived, but the horsemen had other ideas. Antonine, who had a better command of the common tongue than did Rowler, spoke. So, what is the plan? He said, warming his hands. The plan, began Losgrel, was to leave as soon as you arrived and discuss the details on the way. I had thought the wizard made it clear in his letter that this is a matter of urgency, said the knight, his arms folded. Is that so? We have been riding for many hours. If we are expected to immediately ride, perhaps it should be in the direction of warm beds and waiting women, said Antonine. Burdock, I thought you said these men were noble and trustworthy, said Losgrel loud enough for the horsemen to hear him. Well now, Losgrel, began the Red Wizard, trying to calm the tense situation. Antonine arose and motioned to his men. Perhaps you are correct, Sir Knight. Perhaps you can find another group of men more noble than us also willing to ride to your aid. We will not be spoken to in such a manner. Let us ride. Losgrel, let me do the talking from now on, will you, said Burdock, his frustration building. Riders, please let us speak, said Burdock as the chief slowed his pace. Please forgive Losgrel. He is just eager to get moving. Please, make yourself comfortable and take what time you need to recover, pleaded the wizard. Fine, said Antonine as he again motioned to his men. Everyone gathered around the fire and the horsemen continued their meal as they all discussed the details of the mission. Losgrel sat between Burdock and Longfellow, his brow furrowed. I am grateful for the reinforcements, Burdock, but we simply cannot attack them directly. We need a new strategy. He paused and gazed into the fire momentarily. We can wait for them to attack the watchtower, then press in on them. Between us and those guarding it, we will have the numbers we need, he said, clenching his fist. How would they know we are there to help? Tien Mozat might mistake us as being among Raybor's forces. They might light the war beacons just the same. There must be another way, said Burdock. If we ride quickly, perhaps we could employ my original idea to get to the watchtower first. We don't have enough time, exclaimed Losgrel. We would have to get around them without being seen, he continued. Something not impossible for a wizard, said Burdock. Things were getting heated, and not just due to the campfire they sat around. We could trick them, said Longfellow meekly. The bickering went silent as everyone's eyes honed in on Longfellow. The horsemen, he began, looking around at them. They wear 2 sets of clothing. We could stuff them with leaves and vegetation and set them up all around them, making them think we have twice the numbers. They would think they were surrounded, then we could demand the surrender of the prince. Burdock nodded in agreement. Yes, By the gods, I think it has a better chance of working than anything else we have thought up. As he lit his pipe he said under his breath, every bit as crafty as a wizard if you ask me. We would still need to ride around them to set up the decoys without being detected, said the knight. Just leave that part to me, said the red wizard. There, now we have a plan, Sir Knight, said Andanine as Rowler returned outside and offered each of them elixirs for themselves and for their horses. The horsemen finished the last of their meal and began back toward the grazing horses. As the others were mounting up and preparing to move out, Burdock was saying a final farewell to Rowler when Longfellow approached. Burdock, there is something you should know, something the seer told me before we left her, he said between nervous inhalations. Yes? Well, what did she tell you? Asked Burdock. She told me that if Milo faced Raybor, he will be killed. She said that I must face him, he said frantically. Just a moment now. No one will be getting killed so long as I am breathing, said Burdock. I am beginning to wonder about this seer, he said softly. Burdock turned and spoke to Rowler in his native language before turning back toward Longfellow. Thank you for telling me this, now go mount up. As Longfellow trudged away, Burdock said in a low voice, now let us see what these Atlanteans are made of. Burdock mounted up and rode alongside Milo. Milo, you have done enough. I am pretty sure we can manage with Andanine and his men. By this time, Longfellow had climbed up on Jack and was seated behind Milo. In fact, the three of you can stay here with Rowler if you would like, and when we get back, we can see about getting you home. Milo sat there in shock. Here was his chance to be done with it all, to remove himself from the whole damn equation. It seemed like an eternity as Burdock rode to the front of the group. The realization that the decision that he would make in the next few seconds would affect everyone around him. The seconds ticked by. Milo, we need to get moving, now, cried a faint voice. What? Did you just say that, Long? Asked Milo, in bewilderment. No, I didn't say anything, replied Longfellow. What are you going to do? He asked. Milo thought briefly about what Burdock said about getting home. I can't go home without proof of my innocence. Right now, my proof lies with Raybor, he thought. He really only had one option, to continue on with them. I can't let that fat little witch be proven right, said Milo. What about you? What are you going to do? Longfellow paused and thought. I should fight. I don't want to go without you and Jack but you. He paused, remembering Napari's warning not to tell Milo. I just think it might be dangerous for you. Maybe you should stay and I should go. Nonsense, said Milo. I am not going to let you have all the fun without me, said Milo. All right, Jack, let's get moving, shall we? Goodbye, Rowler, said Longfellow, his arm raised high. We are off to catch some impostors, he cried. Goodbye, friends. No, get hurt. I make prayer, burn incense. You be safe now, said the wise wizard as he made a sign of blessing toward the whole group. Burdock, seeing that Milo was still with them, he fell back. So, are we ready? Asked Burdock with a twinkle in his eye. We are more than ready, exclaimed Milo. Good, said Burdock with a nod. Very good, he said softly as he smiled and rode back to the front with Losgrel and the others. They rode quickly for many miles, Burdock's cape billowing in the wind as Apex galloped. Milo wondered how long the horses could endure the pace, though they made a few stops to rest along the way. They rode for many hours, south on the road that stretched from the Chinzi all the way to the railroad tracks. The daylight was waning, and they were just a few miles from the tracks. The air was warmer and drier here. The wind whipped over the tufts of withered grass that poked out from between the rocks as they slowed their pace. We should camp here tonight, exclaimed Losgrel, gesturing toward a cluster of alders and thick bramble fed by a small creek. The creek, which was dry most of the year, was flowing with the cool runoff from melting snow and ice from the surrounding area. The horses drank and drinking vessels were refilled. They set up camp and built a small fire and spent the night there. For the first time since they had left the walled city, the noises of the night didn't weigh so heavily on Milo. They say there is safety in numbers, and it sure felt safe being surrounded by Andanine and his men. After a very restful night, the group awoke and broke down the camp. They were on the border of the disputed lands and only a few miles from the path that ran alongside the railroad tracks. Raybor was expected to attack the watchtower on the morning after the fourth night of Milo's vision. Tonight would be the fourth night. They all mounted up and headed for the rail path. As the rail path loomed closer, Losgrel, Burdock, and Andanine motioned for the others to stay back as they scouted ahead. Losgrel was the first down from his horse, followed by the other two. Carefully, Losgrel took a knee and listened intently before examining the path. He walked back and forth studying and making mental notes of the impressions of hooves in the sandy soil. These tracks, he began. It must be them. It is as Milo said. Between 25 and 30 horsemen. Burdock, there is something else. What do you mean? Said Burdock as he strode quickly toward Losgrel, his staff gripped firmly. They both looked at the strange tracks which accompanied the many galloping horse prints. Another creature rides with them, it appears, said Burdock, his voice tinged with concern. Waterfowler, said Losgrel grimly. I have never known such a creature being tamed by humans, he added. There's only one way it could be, said Burdock slowly as he stroked his beard. Losgrel and Andanine looked at Burdock, waiting for an explanation. It must be an Enkaloi, a dark form of an Enoi. This waterfowler has a rider, and I think someone knows who that rider is, said Burdock as he mounted up. It can be killed though, yes? Asked Losgrel. Yes, of course. It may possess an evil magic, but it is still just an animal after all. It may be armored just as Jack is, but a few men with spears would do the trick, said Burdock. Just as a few men with spears could do the same to Jack, cautioned Losgrel. Burdock looked grimly ahead as he thought about the possibility of Jack's death. His mind drifted to his days as a young apprentice when his mentor, Drendar the Gold, received some elephant calves who had lost their mother. He and Burdock raised the young elephants, one of which turned out to be very special. The one Burdock named Jack, as it turned out, was an Enoi. Though Burdock knew Jack was special and loved him more than the others, he knew it was very rare for a wizard to become an Enoi companion. For some reason that was not fully understood, the inner voice projected from the Enoi was squelched by the magical energies residing in the wizard in most cases. Sadly, when Jack grew, it became time for him to choose his human companion, and Burdock had to say goodbye to the elephant and knew not if he would ever see him again. But now, here he was, about to face down untold dangers side by side with the very same elephant. Soon they returned to the others and Burdock rode alongside Jack. I don't suppose there was a waterfowler in your vision, Milo, was there? Milo looked down in shame. I was scared to tell you. Raybor was mounted on the beast when I saw it. I had hoped its appearance in the vision was just, well, symbolic, said Milo apologetically. Symbolic or not, such a detail should never have been left out, admonished the wizard. While we are on this subject, is there anything else you have neglected to mention? Well, there is one thing. Something the seer said to me before we left her. She said that someone very powerful hinders our mission, but it was not her. She told me not to tell anyone, said Milo. Yes, I sensed a powerful presence when all of you first arrived. I had thought it was the seer until the presence was still near to us even after we left her behind. It seemed to follow us almost all the way to Rowler's house before vanishing altogether. I know there is more you haven't said, the reason you use a false last name, but that is a subject for another time, said the wizard as they began moving south toward the rail trail. Burdock rode to the front of the group alongside Losgrel and Andanine. The tracks looked to be a few hours old. They must have gone through early this morning. They could make it to the watchtower by the evening, quite possibly, said Losgrel. We should trust in Milo's vision, began Burdock. They won't attack until the 5th day, meaning they will set up camp somewhere by the road tonight. That is when we make our move and ride ahead of them. Let us hope you are correct, said Losgrel.